to today's Digital Dealer webinar. Today's webinar is sponsored by Podium and is titled Online Reviews, Why You're Doing It Wrong. Today's webinar presenters are Nico, Dato, Head of Marketing, and Chase Richardson, Director of Sales. This webinar will run approximately 1 hour with a question and answer session at the end. Please welcome Nico, Dato, and Chase Richardson.
Hey, perfect. Thanks for that quick intro. Wanted to quickly thank everyone for jumping on today's webinar, Online Reviews, Why You're Doing It Wrong. Today we're just going to kind of talk through some of the shortcomings that dealerships often perform that, really aren't necessarily helping them get more reviews or at least get the reviews that they want, and that being, 4 or 5-star reviews. So we're going to quickly just talk through, the automotive market. If you've been on a webinar with us before, we like to kind of lay that foundation. And then we're just going to jump right into, 5 or 6 of the most common things that we see. So not to get too far ahead of myself, but I'm going to quickly talk through the agenda. So like I said, we're going to kind of lay the foundation for this automotive market. We're going to talk about why reviews are important within the automotive market, why dealerships are really kind of flocking to reviews as an operational and marketing tool, in really great numbers, to be quite honest, in how they're utilizing them to find the most value and get the most benefit out of each and every review. Secondly, we're going to talk about, like I said, the most common, shortcomings of the dealerships are making in regards to getting reviews and what they're doing, wrong, to be quite blunt, in their review process. And we're going to talk about how you can quickly make those tweaks to see a pretty good spike in the number of reviews you're collecting and the quality of reviews you're collecting. And then, lastly, we're just going to talk through how all of these online reviews can help in general. So we're going to get a little in depth, but we're also going to kind of step back out of the weeds and talk about why they really are important, overall. So real quick, just to give a quick introduction of who we are and why we're qualified to even talk about this. My name's Nico. I run marketing here for Podium, and also we have Chase, who's our director of sales here at Podium. And so, Podium, not to be too salesy or pitchy, Podium just helps dealerships collect online reviews. And so this is what we live, this is what we breathe. We feel like we know it pretty much better than anyone else. And so, like I said, just wanted to give a quick introduction and let you guys know why we're actually qualified to even talk about this. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and jump right in, and Chase is going to quickly talk about the automotive market and opportunity.
Perfect. Thanks, Nico. Yeah, today's automotive space is very, very competitive. Always has been, but today's market has led so far into the online space that it's crucial that you're being found, and people like to see what they have found when they do find you. So online reviews is crucial to this space, and so it's a fun space to be in for us as well. But for OEMs and new dealerships, it's crucial to show how you're different, because to a consumer, it's hard to say, hey, there's 2 of these dealerships. Let's say they're both Chevy dealerships. We know the vehicles they provide, the prices that we can expect, the packages that come with those vehicles. But what can make a difference for a dealership to me as a consumer is what kind of an experience that you can provide to me versus the other guys. And that is all based on reviews, and that can be found before you even know they're interested in purchasing a vehicle. So that's the 2 characteristics of a perfectly competitive market. They understand what you provide, and to a consumer, it can be identical in product. Buyers have a complete information about the product, so they can see what you have on the lot, the colors, the makes, the models. And so it will come down to what kind of an experience you can provide versus your competitors. Now, you can see that little stat on the right. Customers can be as far as 70% through the buying process before making contact to your dealership. So potentially, if they don't like what they see about your dealership, they're going to go to the competitor without you even knowing that you just lost their business.
Yeah, and I'll just add real quick, Chase hit it right on the head, but I mean, most of these things kind of determine, which dealerships are visited. And in a perfectly competitive market, which some of you may or may not argue that the auto industry is, it takes those little differentiators to make sure that you're actually the dealership that's going to be chosen and going to be found online. And so that's kind of why we like to lay this foundation.
Yeah, great. So next would be the buying process. The first part is awareness, right? They're going to go home, they're going to search dealerships near me, and it's going to pull up a list of businesses localized to them. And that's kind of the awareness phase. People are searching online, and it's based off of reviews on where you're going to be pulling up on those kind of searches. The next would be consideration, and that's who am I going to potentially buy with? Who fits the markets? Who's got the reviews that I like as a consumer to consider purchasing from? And that's all the way up to 80% of the customers are trusting those online reviews as much as the personal recommendation. So, that's the brother or sister saying, hey, you need to go to these guys. They're the best dealership around. When they read that, they trust it. Now, the next would be the decision. 68% of the buyers say that positive reviews make them trust a local business more. So if they can go on there, they narrow it down to 2 or 3 dealerships that they're going to choose from to purchase. They're reading reviews. This is going to be a huge contribution to them choosing your dealership, is if they like what they see in your reviews. Great. So next is why online reviews matter to dealerships. Surface level, I think we all understand what reviews can do for a dealership. And that's, people are going to go here and read them. They're going to find these reviews. Are they going to like them? But it's so much more than that. It can be that the local SEO and pulling up in the map pack. It can be the buy-ins of your sales rep. So if the sales rep are collecting reviews, it's a huge motivator for them to continue pushing hard and providing a great experience, because they know people are going to read the reviews written about them specifically. So there's really so many different avenues that reviews can help your dealership, and why it's so important for you to be collecting these.
Great. Thanks, Chase. Okay, so why you're doing it wrong. We've kind of laid the foundation. We quickly talked about, how you can differentiate your dealership with these reviews as far as being stacked up to competition. Chase briefly touched on, the local SEO benefits. So impacting that map pack to be found much easier. And then we kind of talked about the buying process for a potential dealership. So now we're just going to jump straight into kind of the most common reasons we see dealerships are actually doing them wrong. So we'll just jump into number 1 here. So the first one that we usually find with dealerships, reason that is for why they're doing it wrong is the time that they are sending the invite. So this first one, as you see, is when are you sending the invites? A lot of times we see dealerships send out an invite a week later, even a couple days later, even the next day later. And if that happens, the experience that you provided has already left the consumer's mind. They've already gotten their car, they've already left your dealership, they're on to the next thing in life, and they're just not really focused on leaving a review for you. So what we recommend is getting that invite before the customer even leaves your dealership. Now, it's really important to kind of talk through how you get this review while they're still at your dealership. The first thing you don't want to do is get reviews from the same IP address. So you don't want to have an iPad that you have every single customer leave a review on. If you do that, you're likely going to get flagged by Google or by Yelp, and they're just not going to see the review as a real review. Even though it may be, they just won't see it like that. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you're using a device that your customers commonly use. They're going to be able to quickly leave the review on, and they're just going to be able to easily navigate. So what we usually find that to be is a cell phone or a smartphone. We like to make sure that they're using the kinds of review sites and apps that they're familiar with. So if you can couple those couple of things with getting the review before they leave your dealership, the likelihood of you getting a review is astronomically higher. And we have tons of data internally that supports this, but you just need to do it compliantly, and you just need to do it correctly.
Yeah, and we hear a lot of times that window is as small as 2 hours after the purchase. That's when they're the most excited about their new purchase. They're in that euphoric stage of excitement. Even waiting that little bit of time, that wears off into where it's like, oh man, what have I done, right? I just spent a lot of money on a new vehicle. Even though they're super excited and it's a great car, their experience is still not as good as it would have been if you could have collected that while they're still in the showroom.
Yep. So by doing this and by collecting this review while they're still at the showroom, you're taking control. If you're not proactively encouraging reviews, then you're not taking control. And I want to take a step back real quick and mention that taking control and encouraging reviews is much different than soliciting a review or like offering some kind of monetary gift in exchange for a review. What we mean by encouraging and taking control is just saying, hey, it'd be very, very helpful if you could just leave us a quick review on whichever review site you use. It's just great for us. We get the feedback. Our employees can use it to become, better at their jobs, and it helps us as a dealership just become better. And also, it just helps our dealership quite a bit. So if there's any way you can do that, that'd be great. And like I said, I want to note that that's much different than saying, hey, leave us a review on Yelp and we're going to give you a free car wash. That's exactly what you don't want to do. So take control, encourage a review in your dealership, and just kind of take it on regardless of whether or not it's a good or a bad review. If it's a bad review, you're going to be able to take that feedback and make operational changes and increase, some kind of efficiency within your dealership. If you're smart about it, that's what you would do. So take control, allow them a very easy way to do it, and make sure you're doing it at the most opportune time. Like Chase said, when they're kind of in this euphoric stage and they're really, really happy about, getting their brand new car or their service done. The next is build your ask into the process. The ask is kind of what I just mentioned. It's finding the most opportune time while they're at your dealership, usually during F&I or while they're just finding any kind of downtime at your dealership, and just saying, very casually, hey, we would love if you could just leave us a review. It's super helpful to us. And again, don't solicit it. Don't offer things in exchange. Just, be very real and organic about it.
Yeah. We found that in reality, people are more than willing to leave reviews. They almost feel obligated to do so. So by asking, it's really not asking that much. It's just kind of telling them that it is important to your dealership. They know it is, but they may not know since you're not asking for it and they're not going to spend the time to do it. Usually it's those upset people who will go ahead and do it if you're waiting for it to be organic. So, just asking them, telling them that it's important, finding the best time to do so will drastically affect your opportunity there.
Yep. And the last thing I'll add is just make this a repeatable process. As you make it a repeatable process and every employee is doing it, you're going to be able to, make small tweaks to optimize. And I guarantee you that you're going to see a large increase in reviews. But again, make sure you're doing it compliantly. The next is your delivery method. I kind of touched on this on the last one. What we'll see a lot of dealerships do is send an email like 2 days later, and the conversion rate on an email a couple of days later is ridiculously low. If you think about, your buying cycle and just how you are as a consumer, if you go buy a car and then you get an email 2 days later, you're most likely going to be busy or preoccupied with something else. You're probably never going to fill it out. Or you may not even check your email. If you're like majority people, you may not check your personal email until, 3 or 4 days later. And so you kind of miss that gap in the euphoric times kind of passed. So what we recommend is, depending on your demographic, and you can do some research yourself, but what we recommend is trying to do it through text message. What we've found is that text message have almost a 99% open rate and read rate. So 99% of people are checking that text message that they get. And then 90% of those text messages that are opened are actually opened within 3 minutes of receiving it. So if you boil that down to what we just talked about, as far as getting the review while they're still on your showroom floor, it's really, really effective. So like I said, it's really up to you, though, to kind of do this research to find out what devices your consumers are most commonly using. And you probably have a gut feeling but I would recommend just kind of digging in a little bit further to kind of validate that gut feeling. But a couple of stats that we run across is that, roughly 79% of Americans have a smartphone. That's up from 68% last year, by the way, so it's only growing. And then the average smartphone user checks their device over 110 times a day. If you don't believe that, I encourage you to try to count. We've done it here, and it actually shakes out being really, really close. And then you compare that 110 times a day to the average person checking their email 15 times each day. And I would probably wager that 15 times a day is on the work email versus a personal email. I know I'm pretty much glued to my phone, and I don't check my personal email 15 times a day.
Yeah, I might check it once, but the business email, which they're not going to give you when purchasing a vehicle, is the one that they're most likely checking 15 times a day.
Yep. So, and then real quick, this stat on the right-hand side, I think we kind of touched on it on the last slide, but email messages can have a 20% read rate compared to a 99% via text message. Again, 20% on email is still fairly high. So just kind of do a gut check on what devices you think your consumers are using. That's really going to play into your demographics, kind of the types of people you're selling to, the geographic area you're in, and just like the age of your average consumer.
Awesome. Yeah, so negative reviews, we all have them, right? If you're a business, there's going to be miscommunications at some point to where the very least you can do is respond. People expect to see them, but if they see a response to the negative review, it's kind of like turning that negative review into a positive because it shows you care and that you're willing to fix the problem. But we do want to make sure that you're responding to them. And so looking at that, Google has also put a priority on this to helping with local SEO. If you're responding to reviews, it is going to help you pop up higher on Google and on the local map searching. So just know that we coach to respond to at least a quarter of your positive reviews, and if it's a negative review, 100%. A simple line of, accepting responsibility. The last thing you want is you to have a bad experience with us. We'd love to make things right. Please contact us at this phone number or email, and we'd love to see what we can do for you. So just accepting it and trying to take that conversation offline is the best you can do. But in reality, just responding shows a lot to a consumer who's looking at these reviews.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add, last week we actually got an email from someone mentioning that these comments or these responses back to some of these reviews actually may be playing a larger factor in SEO than thought before, based on recent Google changes. So we can't necessarily verify that 100%, but that's something that people are talking about. So regardless of whether or not it's true, I would respond anyway because it shows potential customers that you care. But then if you can also tack on an additional SEO benefit, you'd be crazy not to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and their service is to make that easy. So perfect. Now, the customer experience feedback loop is kind of something that you guys work with every single day. If you can provide a great customer service and make people have a great experience with you, the likelihood of them coming back for service and purchasing of new vehicles is much greater. So first, this transaction is made. They've chosen you, they purchased a vehicle, they serviced their vehicle. Next is they leave a review. With that easy process that you can create and having them leave the review before they leave it's much greater. It's literally 100 times more likely they'll leave a review if you can get them to leave it while they're in the dealership. So we talked about that. Next is you responding. So, hey, we really appreciate your review. It means so much. We can't wait to see you again, kind of thing. And then obviously that process is going to come back through, and you can improve when there's negative or internal feedback, and then they're going to come back and repeat. So customer experience is there.
Yeah, and I would really use this as a method to find business insights and potential efficiencies within your business. I mean, these reviews can really act as like an NPS survey, or they can really help weed out some of the things you need to fix before potential CSIs go out or anything like that. And so the transaction's made, the review's left, you respond to the review, and then you're gaining all that feedback from the review. And what you're going to see is that within each review, you're going to have more qualitative feedback than, a general NPS survey that just says, like, how did we do? Tell us from 1 to 10. With the review, you're actually going to get this qualitative feedback, and you may even get salespeople's names or exactly what they did wrong. And what you're going to be able to do is take that to improve processes and potentially, use as training collateral for new hires or for existing hires. So, like Chase said, that's the customer experience feedback loop, and we strongly believe in it.
Yeah, so this is just a quote from one of our clients. People don't always go online to let others know that they're happy, and that makes positive reviews hard unless you have an effective tool and process in place. And so that's kind of what we're coaching here, is if you can find that timing, the process, and implement that process to be happening every single purchase of a vehicle or service of a vehicle, you're going to see results, and that's kind of step one.
Great. Okay, so let's talk about what probably most everyone wants to talk about on this webinar, which is local SEO. So most of you are probably semi-familiar with Google's map pack. So there used to be, 7 results that showed up in local-based search queries. So queries like auto dealerships near me. As of around August, they cut it down to 3 results that you'll see, and you'll see that on the next slide here. But within those 3 results, reviews do play an impact in determining where you show up. And then aside from that, when you actually show up, the reviews play an impact in, helping the consumer determine which dealership or site they're going to visit. So this 4.4 really can stand out, quite a bit more against this 3.3. And so reviews really have this twofold impact on SEO. One, it's going to help determine where you're showing up in the map pack. And 2, the quality and quantity of reviews you have for your dealership are going to impact conversion, meaning how many people are actually going to click. And that conversion loop can actually feed back to impact SEO again, because it's telling Google, say this BMW of Mountain View is the best option for a majority of searches. This must be the best option. And so let's make sure we display this one back at the top. So there's kind of this loop that's going back and forth as far as reviews go. So it's going to help you pop up, and it's going to help you convert. What's really cool about this map pack is that when they swapped it to this, what people are calling snack pack or local pack, but these 3 options, is what Google actually did is swap it so that it now appears roughly 93% of the time for all local-based search queries as the #1 spot, meaning besides the Google AdWords ads that you see with the yellow little boxes that say ads, this map pack is showing up first. And as you can see on the left-hand side here, it's garnering, quite a few clicks. 32% of clicks is what it's estimated to get for that first position, 14% of clicks for the second, 10% for the third. And then for the people who have to come and click on more places, the dealerships that are going to show up in that more places area just drops astronomically. So it's very, very important to ensure that you're up in these top areas within the map pack. So with that said, we're going to talk through a little bit about the online review factors that matter most. And this is really focused on conversion versus SEO. And to give you a quick stat as far as SEO goes and the reviews impact of local SEO, reviews are estimated to impact roughly 10% of Google's algorithm. That may not sound like a lot, but it really is quite a bit. And we see a lot of customers that come in as a customer that aren't even appearing in that map pack. And just by collecting quite a few reviews and making a couple of tweaks to their Google My Business page, they can appear in the map pack within, a month, maybe 2. So reviews really, really play a big role in that part. Now, the second part, like I just mentioned, is conversion. So people care about seeing really these 5 things when it comes to online reviews. The first is overall star rating. So do they have a 5.0 or do they have a 2.0? That really makes a massive difference, as I'm sure that's not a very big surprise to you. The second is the quantity of reviews. People want to make sure that 5.0 star rating isn't just one review that's probably like a spouse or some kind of relative or an employee. So they want to make sure that, 20, 30, 40, 100 people has said, yeah, this really is a 5-star company or 5-star dealership who you'd want to engage with. The next is the sentiment of reviews. So what are people saying in there, in those reviews, that is? Are people mentioning that they provided just the easiest way to get a car, or they felt like they weren't being lied to, or the process for getting the car took under an hour or 2 hours or whatever? The sentiment really matters. People will actually read through those reviews to see what others are saying, to make sure that their needs and hopes really align with people who have engaged with this dealership previously. The age of the reviews really do matter as well. So we'll see some dealerships just say, oh, we're just going to collect like 100 new Google reviews or Yelp reviews or whatever and call it good. Well, that helps, but the problem is today's average consumer is a lot more savvy than most people think. They're able to quickly go on and see like what reviews were left within the last week or last month or last year. And if they haven't gotten any 5-star reviews within the last year, then there may be a red flag there for a potential consumer. The last is whether or not a business responds to review. And Chase talked about this a little bit. By responding to reviews, both positive and negative, it really shows that your company and your brand has a personality and that they really care about the experience that's provided. They're really proud of the experience that's provided. And so by responding to these reviews, you really can impact the conversion offline as far as them visiting your dealership, and online just as far as them clicking through to your website. One last stat I'll point out before Chase can come in and correct anything I missed is this stat from Harvard Business School on the right-hand side. It basically says a 1-star improvement in online reviews can lead to a 5 to 9% increase in revenue. So that's pretty big, right? Just increasing your star rating by 1% has the potential to increase your revenue by up to 9%. So definitely do not neglect this, and don't neglect your star rating. If you keep getting bad ratings, you probably need to figure out what's going on and make those quick changes to improve that star rating as quickly as possible. Anything to add, Chase?
No, I think you covered it well. And I think something to keep in mind is this 1 through 5 here is also what Google's looking at to say who's relevant to these searches. So if you have all of these items and you have recent reviews and the quality of reviews are there, you're going to be a higher likelihood to pop up on that first spot in the Google Map Pack. And just to speak to the sentiment of reviews, since you're collecting the review while they're in the dealership, we're not just seeing that this place is great so that they can, move on and go on with their day. We're seeing I worked with Tom is so helpful. I'm so excited about my new vehicle. Can't wait to continue, yada, yada. And we end up seeing paragraphs because the experience is fresh in their mind and they're sitting in the dealership, right? They may have 5 or 10 minutes to go before they get out of there. So there's a few different, all 5 of these are so crucial, but in reality, it comes down to the timing of it and the experience that you provide. So
great.
Perfect. So that just brings us to which review sites are you targeting? So I'm sure you guys have all heard of DealerRater, Cars.com, Edmunds. They're all very important. But when we look at it as an SEO standpoint and where people are going to find your dealership, we prioritize Google, Facebook, and Yelp. And the reasoning why is how many users they have and how they affect SEO in general. And that's just to touch base on a few points. But let's think about, how many people have Facebook, Google, and Yelp accounts? Most people, right? But they may have not heard about DealerRater, Cars.com, Edmunds. So they're going to start on searching, dealerships near me on Google, and they'll come across those other review platforms. But the first 3 they're going to see most likely are the Google, Facebook, and Yelp. And so that's where we're going to focus most. But it also is coming down to the authenticity of these reviews. When somebody stumbles across an industry-specific site, they may not be familiar. They buy a car every 2 to 5 years, and so they don't know what DealerRater is or Cars.com. Can they trust these reviews, or are the dealerships just putting these reviews up there themselves? Are they filtered? So they're going to go ahead and trust the Google, Facebook, and Yelp ones because these are apps they use every single day. So bringing that down to the legitimacy here. So I kind of got my head of myself here and talked about it already, but we want to make sure that this is a balanced presence. So if somebody goes and Googles you and you have a great star rating, you want to see the similar star rating across all the different platforms to just solidify that you guys are a 5 point, or 4.5 business.
Yeah.
Anything you add in that,
Yeah,
Nico?
I mean, Chase kind of hit it on the head. So as far as like SEO and recognition, most everyone knows Google, Yelp, and Facebook. They're consumer sites. They're easily trusted. They're review sites that people are engaging with most every day. And then on the opposite side, we have the diversification and increased trusted websites like Cars.com, Youre, and Edmunds. Now, those will still appear, towards the top of search results, and they still do impact SEO. But really what we find is that they really help in this diversification department and increasing the trust. And like Chase said, if you do it right and build a balanced presence, what you're going to find is that regardless of which website a potential customer finds you on, your star rating and your outward appearance and online reputation is going to be similar. And so you really shouldn't care about which site they find you on, because all of them are saying almost the exact same thing.
Awesome. Yeah, so another point, you're doing it wrong if you're paying for reviews, right? So we want to make sure that these reviews are authentic and they're coming from real accounts. I'm sure you guys have all heard about it, right? They come around my computer here, leave us a quick review, sign in on my computer. Here's my tablet. If you wouldn't mind signing into your Yelp account, leaving us a quick review. This started to cause a few different problems for IP and a few other reasons we'll talk about in a minute. But just making sure that businesses aren't focused on earning online reviews, or they are focused on earning online reviews versus buying them. The consequences of buying reviews outweigh the short-term benefits that you might receive. So just to speak towards that here in the next page here, if you're paying for these reviews, obviously they're going to be skewed towards one side or the other, and that's kind of frowned upon from a few different review platforms, and it's kind of easy to identify. The reviews aren't going to be as quality. Now, let's say you are having people coming around your computer and leaving a quick review on the computer or the laptop or anything like that. It's going to see the IP address. And I get this question pretty much every single day. How does your system get around the IP address since you're collecting reviews at the dealership? There are ways. Having the customer leave this from their personal device it's not tracked on the IP address versus, here's my tablet. That's going to be a unique ID number, just like the cell phone, but it's going to see that same unique ID number from that device over and over and over again, leaving reviews. And so that's going to throw up a red flag.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add is, like, as far as buying reviews goes, you just shouldn't do it. What you're seeing on the left-hand side here where it says consumer alert, this is actually a real consumer alert that Yelp will place on a business's webpage for, they say, 3 months. And basically what it says and what it does is scares people away. It basically says this business was caught participating in, activities that are against our policies, and it may have been guiding consumers the wrong way and basically giving them false information. And so what you really don't want to do is buy any kind of reviews, offshore those reviews and have people fill them out. You just don't want to do that. I'll often see people try to get reviews off of like Craigslist, and like they'll put postings up for like $5 or $20, whatever, for a 5-star review. Those are the things you really don't want to do. That's how you're going to get caught. I talked about it a little bit earlier. Offering monetary compensation for a positive review or just something monetary in exchange just really isn't that great of an idea, especially when it comes to Yelp.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I said earlier, people are more than willing to leave reviews. They do feel obligated since you have provided a great service to share that. So if you just make it easy for them, then it's going to happen naturally. Yep. Now you guys all know that creating fake accounts and leaving positive reviews is just a huge no-no. So even people doing that know that, so let's just leave it at that. So authentic feedback. So that's kind of what we're beating around the bush here. We want authentic feedback from real customers, and that's going to be the thing that helps you out the most. Identifying that, you may get a few bad reviews here and there, but that's going to show that you're a business. Easily do a quick response, turn that negative into a positive in the eyes of the readers, and really focus on the positive. If you do make it easier for them, you're going to overweigh that negative that happens with positive feedback, and it's going to show a positive experience overall. And that's what's most important, is just 98% of your customers are happy, get them to leave a review. That other 2% that's unhappy and honestly will never be satisfied where anywhere they go, they're going to leave a bad review, and that's fine. We'll deal with that as it happens.
Great. Okay. The final thing we're going to talk about as far as what you're doing wrong is using reviews to your advantage. So obviously we've talked about some of the core benefits that come with gathering online reviews and managing those online reviews, but there are a number of other things you can do to maximize the value that you're getting from these online reviews. So as we jump right in, these are a couple of the things that we find, current customers or other people out there who we see as thought leaders in the space are doing with their existing reviews. Now, in each and every one of these buckets that we'll talk through, it's important to note that you as a dealership don't legally own the content. Google actually owns the content, Yelp owns the content, Facebook, DealerRater, whichever review site you're using, they own the content. So it really wouldn't be wise to take that review verbatim and use it in marketing collateral. But what you can do is say, Sally left us this amazing review. It touches on all the points we want to talk about as a marketing team or as a dealership. Maybe we should reach back out to her and see how we can get, a good testimonial to use in one of these other mediums. So again, I just want to stress that you really should not use that verbatim language that's provided in those reviews. So one of the most common ways we see reviews utilized is through print. So that can be through snail mail or, things that you're handing out at your dealership or, at local events, community events, whatever, just using those testimonials in print. The next is retention. So sending out somewhat what you may call like re-engagement emails to say, hey, looks like you're up for service. We'd love for you to come back and use our service center. And this is why. This customer had an amazing experience, through our service center, whatever. Billboards is one of the most common ones we see. So you'll actually see a testimonial from someone up on a billboard. Super, super effective. And so we'll never advise against that. It's really good medium. Website is also a very common one. What I would recommend here is if you do have a testimonials page, that's great. Most people probably won't navigate to that page. And if they are, good on you. But I would check like your Google Analytics or whatever analytics software you're using to track where people are visiting your website. And you'll probably see that they don't visit your testimonials page. So what I would do is take those testimonials that you're gathering and kind of sprinkle them across your site. Because things like the homepage or like the contact us page are going to get probably quite a bit more viewers than your testimonial page. And so you want to make sure that you're utilizing those testimonials and making sure that they're found on your site. Another is PPC. So there's extensions that you can use within your PPC to ensure that your stars are actually showing up in some of your AdWords. There's plenty of articles out there to show you exactly how to do that if you just Google it. The next is search engine marketing. So I'm sure most of you guys do retargeting. So if someone visits your site, they're going to get followed with ads on Facebook or on Google AdWords or Twitter or whatever. So using testimonials there is very, very helpful. Another is radio. We actually have one customer who all of their radio ads, which is like basically their biggest ad spend, all of their radio ads are totally based off of customer reviews. And they say that it's one of the most effective campaigns that they've ever run. And so using those testimonials in radio ads is a quick way to capture attention, when it may be really, really difficult to actually capture radio listening attention. And then the last is blog. We recommend blogging, maybe like once or twice a week, and especially doing it based off like local community events or like buying tips for potential consumers. But you can really do a good job of utilizing testimonials within your blog. And like I said, you need to make sure you're compliantly leveraging these reviews. So let your relationship with the endorser be known. Don't lift reviews word for word from review sites. Just use them as a qualifier. And by qualifier, we mentioned like, oh, Sally left this amazing review. Maybe we should reach out to her and see if she'll give us a testimonial. The third is ensure that testimonials are accurate. You don't want to have them say something that they may not really mean. And then always get written permission from your endorser or your customer. It's always smart. Usually you're never going to run into any issues, but we always advise to get written permission. The very, very, very last thing that we would recommend that most companies are doing wrong is use an online review management tool that works best for your business. So don't be inefficient and waste time by tracking all of your different review site pages like in a spreadsheet and clicking through once a week, or trying to print out cards that you're going to hand out to consumers that probably won't get them to leave a review. Your best bet is finding a review management tool that works for you. And that really boils down to like the delivery method, like we talked about, so email or text-based. And then the timing for when these things are sent out. So making sure that your team can use this tool to get the most benefit and value out of it. And so really, I would use an online review management tool, even if it's not Podium, to make your life a little bit easier. If you do decide to use Podium, we have put together a discount code. It's just DD-2016. And so screenshot this, save it, whatever you want, hand it out to friends, other dealerships. Make sure to use it. We don't care. We want to make sure that you guys, get the most value out of the tool and that you get a great deal on it. Lastly, we quote our sources. So we'll send this out. We quote all of our sources. We want you guys to know that we're not just bluffing and making this stuff up. And so when you do get these slides, here are the sources for the stats that we use today. With that said, Alyssa, we can open it up to like 10 minutes or so for Q&A.
Okay, that was some great information. So we're now in the question and answer portion of the webinar. Please feel free to submit your questions to the question box now. And we'll start with the first question. When is the best time to send a review invitation, or why does the timing of the review invitation matter?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this a little bit, and there's so many different reasons why you want to collect it while they're in the dealership. There's always a good 5-10 minute window while they're still there to where they've had a great experience with the dealership and they're willing to leave that review, and the experience is fresh in their mind. So if they can easily leave you a review while they're still in that experience and before they've taken off, the likelihood of them leaving the review and leaving a quality review is much greater. As soon as they leave, we all know how it goes. They have other things that they need to do. They have errands they need to run. Even if it's in the top of their mind right when they leave, yes, I'm going to leave a review. That was amazing. By the time they can leave a review, they're not thinking about it anymore, and their likelihood is gone.
Okay, and which medium do customers respond to most often? Is it email or text message?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this as well. It just depends on your demographics. So in general, we see that text message has the highest response rate and conversion rate because most everyone has a cell phone and most everyone is checking their cell phone multiple times a day. With that said, there may be verticals or demographics or geographic areas that are more tailored to email. But in general, we see that text message is the most effective.
Yeah, and just to speak to that again, honestly, if you're doing any CSIs, if you're a new dealership, the CSI is going to be the most important email that they're going to get after the sale. So we don't want to dilute that with other, asking for surveys or reviews through email before that. The only email we want them to receive is the CSI. And so if you deliver it through text while they're in the dealership, collect that feedback, positive or negative. You can fix the problem if it is negative, or collect a positive review online if it's a positive experience, which is going to in turn affect your CSI returns. But it's also, when they do get that CSI email, that's the one that you want them to complete. So that's the first one you'd like to lead with through email.
Okay, and next question. It says, nearly everyone says you need to respond to every review, but doing this for some time, there are some customers that just want to start an online war. How do you deal with those reviewers?
Yeah, so I'd say respond to 100% of the negatives. The positives, just keep up with it. If you're doing a good process, you're going to be having 100 or so reviews each month. So with the negative, yes, respond to those. And people are going to want to start a war. They're going to want to make you look bad, and that's kind of why they're leaving the bad review. And that's why we just say, respond by saying, hey, the last thing we want is a bad experience. We pride ourselves in providing a great service. Please contact us at this phone number, this email, and we'll take this conversation offline and make sure you're taken care of. That way, even if they email back again, you've responded, you've given them an avenue to contact you offline and fix the problem. If they take it, they take it. If not, then they're just going to be one of those people that argue online, and you can go ahead and ignore that. Just that one response is plenty. When you're responding to reviews, again, sorry to add on to this, but have somebody respond back to it that's kind of disengaged from the situation. If they're emotionally involved, then it's going to turn into a battle. But if this is somebody who has no idea, yes, they know this car was sold, but they weren't in the problem, they weren't in the neck of it. So, just a simple response that's not emotional is the best case.
Okay, and next question. Could you give an example of using a review from Google to a billboard or radio ad without breaking compliance with the host site, like Google or Facebook, etc.?
Yeah. So if I understand the question correctly, it's just give an example of how you might qualify and lift a review from an existing site and using in a billboard. So again, I kind of talked about this. So say Sally says, so-and-so dealership was very, very helpful. They were not they didn't pressure me at all. They weren't very salesy. They made sure that I got into a vehicle that best fit my needs in my price range. Overall, I'd say they were a great experience, and I would highly recommend them to anyone else. What I would do there is try to notice the major pain points that you as a dealership try to focus on, within existing marketing efforts. So one of the major ones that we see here is we're in Utah, so Ken Garff is all about "We Hear You." What I would try to lift from something like that is where Sally says, they really listened to what my needs and my price range were and got me into a vehicle that really fit my needs. I would say something along the lines of like, they really heard what I needed. And I would get with Sally to get a different testimonial than what was left on Google or Facebook or Yelp, but really speak to that major pain point that you guys are always trying to pound on all of your marketing collateral. So that's how I would go about it. Again, that would be compliant as long as you're not lifting it word for word and you're getting a different testimonial. But really, it's going to depend and vary on your dealership and what your overall goals are.
Okay, and what are the consequences of purchasing online reviews?
Yeah, so it differs for each review site. For like Yelp, you'll get that consumer alert message that we showed you on one of the slides. I can go back up and find it right there. That'll stick on there for 3 months, and it'll be what every single consumer sees. That's obviously not what you want. As far as Google goes, what they'll do is they'll just take away your review, or they'll take away a number of the reviews that they think are fake. So it really depends on which review site. Their processes and their consequences differ, but overall, it's going to be negative, and it's not going to be an efficient use of your time.
Okay, and how does a dealership know which online review sites it should be focusing on?
That's a really good question, actually. So we have a couple of different recommendations and methods. One recommendation I'll give as a marketing person is whatever review sites you're currently collecting the most reviews on organically, meaning without doing much, encouraging or much work on, that's the review site I would say a majority of your consumers are using. So if you've got a majority of reviews on Google without having done anything with that to get those reviews on Google, that's probably a pretty good site for you to focus on. If it's DealerRater, maybe that's a good one, or Cars.com, whatever. In general, I would say, though, whichever you have the most reviews on organically is the site that you want to focus on. And a second part to that is it can also help encourage and drive and give you insights as far as where you should put ad spend for like search engine marketing ads. So that's kind of the criteria I use. I don't know if Chase has any that he would add, but that's one I would recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I think Google's always going to be king. That's the first place anybody's going to start their searching. But, for instance, Yelp isn't huge everywhere. So identifying what your geographic and your demographic looks like for Yelp users. Maybe Yelp isn't the biggest importance, so you push that down on the list. So yeah, just kind of identifying where people are most likely going to be doing their searching, where they're currently leaving reviews is most likely that case. So leading back what to Nico said is your best case.
Okay, and how can not responding to negative reviews hurt my dealership?
Yeah, just at face value, it's almost like accepting fault. They could be ranting and raving about how terrible you are or something like that. We've all seen it. If there's no response, it's almost like taking fault and accepting that that's what really happened. And, it could be the case, but showing that you care and that you're willing to fix the problem is, probably going to get that person to reconsider coming back in or potentially fixing that problem and turning that positive into it or negative into a positive for that specific person. And B, people reading those are going to see that as more of a positive review versus such a negative because you're willing to fix the problem instead of just ignore it.
Okay, we'll just open it up again for any last questions. If you have any questions, please submit it in the question box now. All right, well, it looks like there's no other questions, so we'd like to thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and thank you to Podium, Nico, and Chase for some great content. To view this webinar on demand and future Digital Dealer webinars, please visit digitaldealer.com/webinars. Thank you and have a great day.